In this video, we're going to talk about a really important personal development conversation. It's all about how to let go of your past. This is going to apply to you if you want to be a coach in your coaching business, because your business will never grow beyond your current capacity to hold it on a personal level. And this will help you help your clients, because so many people are really struggling with forgiving or letting go or healing whatever they've got going on in their past. And until you do that, until you remove the anchors that are keeping you held tightly and restricted to the past, you really can't create the kind of future that you want. This is a really deep conversation. You got to listen to the whole thing, because the way people are trying to heal their past and let go of things is the reason that they never do it. So we're going to really change the frame for you and give you an experience you've probably not had before. First of all, why is that important? It's important because everything that we are attached to as it relates to our identities and behavior and beliefs, and really all the things that are factoring into our experience of life, is based on our past. It's our past that informs our current experience as well as what we hope to be our future. It's our past. It's all the memories that we have and the experiences that we have and the micro traumas that we have and the macro traumas that we have and the belief systems that we've built and the identities that we've created and all of the conflicts and all the definitions of what's right and wrong and all the programming that we've had input into us. I mean, it's all in our past, right? And so many of us understand that concept, and we try to do whatever we can to unhook from our past. So we understand, many of us, that we need to unhook from our past. We just don't really know how to do it. We know that we need to do it, but we really don't know how to do it. And I'm telling you this just as a reporter for doing this for 15 plus years. You know, people know that we need to forgive. Tell me if this lands for you. A lot of us know that we need to forgive something or someone in our past, whether it's ourselves or somebody else or some circumstance or something that happened to us. We understand that we should forgive, but we really haven't, right? Like, intellectually, I get it. I got to forgive. It's for me. Forgiveness is for me, and I got to let go of whatever's back there so that I can live a more free and liberated life. All of that stuff is true. And I still really haven't, right? And I say I haven't because I still feel the resentment. If we still feel the triggers, then we really haven't fully forgiven. If we still feel the resentment, if it's still controlling our behavior, then we haven't fully forgiven. And this is a situation that I think a lot of people find themselves in, where we have intellectually forgiven something, but not emotionally, or our mind believes that we're over something, but our body really isn't over it. Maybe our intellect is prepared for something, but our body still resists it, or our soul or our emotions still resist the thing that we think we should be able to be over. And so a lot of people find themselves in that situation. And it gets really frustrating because we know what to do, but we're just not able to do it. We know what the outcome should be. Like, we know we're supposed to forgive. We know that we're supposed to just let it go. We know that we're supposed to move beyond it. But for whatever reason, even though we know what to do, we haven't actually done it at a deeper emotional level. Well, the reason is because we don't really fully understand how this brain operates, because we give it instructions that it doesn't comprehend. We try to get ourselves to do things in ways that we're either incapable of doing, or we try to language it in ways that we actually don't understand ourselves. And so if you find yourself in that situation, I want you to know it's really common. It's really common for us to be frustrated that we haven't gotten over something. And I'm going to put those in quotes because That's actually one of the problems, is languaging it that way, that we haven't gotten over something that we know we should have. Anybody shoulding on yourselves? I should have been beyond this. I've known this for decades and I'm still not over it. I should forgive. I should just get past my fear of relationships or speaking in public, or I should just have the confidence to go out and make a bunch of phone calls or do the videos or whatever. Those should feelings actually don't help us. All it does is, for the most part, create more shame. Should usually creates shame. And we're never going to shame our way into happiness. We're never going to shame our way into forgiveness or fulfillment or real joy. That doesn't come from shame, but so many of us are shaming ourselves about not being able, or at least haven't been able to do a thing that we know we should do. So let me explain why this happens for most of us. And if this is landing for you, then please let me know, because I think it's important for all of us to understand that we're not alone if we're in this situation. And I've got plenty of scenarios where this is real for me too, and I'm teaching it. So this is just the human journey, right? So here's why we don't unhook ourselves from the past, even though we know we should. The reason is usually because we're telling ourselves to do something that our brain doesn't understand or our soul doesn't understand, and therefore we can't actually do it. So for instance, if we say, I just got to get over it, whatever the it is, I just got to get over the trauma. I just got to get over the fact that I had the childhood that I had. I got to get over the fact that, the relationship ended the way it ended. Or just move past it. I just got to get past it, right? Just move on. Let's just get past it. Technically, that's true. Technically, we got to get around it. We got to get past it. We got to move through it. We got to do whatever it is that we're telling ourselves we need to do. So technically, it's not false. It just doesn't happen by us just saying that. And one of the reasons that doesn't work, two big reasons that I'm thinking of right now, is number one, the unconscious mind doesn't understand that language. The unconscious mind really only understands active language. Getting over something or releasing something or getting past something isn't active. You're essentially asking your brain to let go of something, but it doesn't understand what it's holding on to in the first place. Even if you know that it's pain or memories or traumas or something like that, how do you just let go? How do you do that? I mean, I get it that we should be able to do that. I get it that if I just forgive whoever did something bad to me, then I'm just letting go of the release that it has on me. But the unconscious mind doesn't understand that. Intellectually, it makes sense, but the unconscious mind, which is where this really has to happen, doesn't understand to just let go of this nebulous thing. Right? Because it's not like I'm holding a pen. If I'm holding a pen, I get it. I just let go and the pen drops. By gravity, it falls out of my hand. But if this is a trauma, if this is a relationship from the past, if this is parents that I wish I didn't have, if this was bullying in my childhood, if this is something that I've been holding on to, it's not a thing that gravity will just pull out of my hand if I let go. So the unconscious mind doesn't understand that. It's passive language. The mind only understands something active. So don't tell the mind what to let go of. Tell the mind what to grab hold of. Tell the mind what to grab onto, not what to let go of. And that's one of the main reasons that people actually don't forgive. The idea of forgiveness or the idea of healing or the idea of getting over it sounds fantastic, and it's not anything that the unconscious mind can actually understand doing. Forgiveness is not an active image to the unconscious mind. It's passive. So instead of telling ourselves what not to do by just don't let this bother you anymore, we've got to give ourselves something to actually do. The second reason that I think we really struggle with this, I've forgotten. I don't know. I don't remember what the second one was. We'll see if it comes back to me. There were two things. One of them was the way we language it, and the second one I think will come to me. But let me tell you the reason or what to actually do, right? Instead of giving your brain something to avoid, what are we actually going to do? So most of us try to get over the past just by pretending it didn't happen or find ways to not touch it, right? Like if we find ways to not think about certain things, or we find ways to really not confront certain things, if we find ways to sweep certain things under the rug, or we find ways to avoid the irritation or avoid the full-on emotional feeling of something, we think that we've gotten over it. We haven't gotten over it. If you lock something in a closet, it's still there. Just because you're on the other side of the wall and it's been locked, or the door, and it's been locked away from you, that doesn't mean that it is gone. And as it relates to our past, if we try to put our past behind a locked door, not only does it not go away, it actually goes unchallenged. It operates on us unchallenged, meaning that it can just roam free, and it can actually control us so much more if we don't look at it, if we don't touch it. So we might think that we've turned around, and since we can't see it, it's not controlling us. It's actually controlling us more because we're not looking at it, but we haven't actually unhooked from it. So I would say the majority of what I see when people are really struggling with this topic, this concept, the majority is because the reason is because they haven't learned how to actually unhook from their past. They've just learned how to pretend it's not there, or they've learned how to cope with what's back there, right, in our brain, or what's back there in our past. So essentially, it's kind of like we're trying to erase it, right? It's like we're trying to void it. And the way to heal your past is not by voiding it. The way to heal your past is actually by valuing it, which is the exact opposite of what we tend to try to do. We actually want to lean into it and love it and value it and look it in the face so that it can stop controlling us. This is the exact opposite of what most people think we need to do, and therefore what most people are doing. And that's why most people don't unhook from their past, because they're following a recipe that's wrong, a recipe that the unconscious brain doesn't understand, and it doesn't work. And I'm telling you this not from theory. I'm telling you this from 15 plus years of just like, hey, this doesn't work and this does. And it doesn't matter where we've learned it from. This isn't like some theoretical or academic discussion about what should work or what doesn't work, or what should work or what shouldn't work. This is just what simply works for humans and what doesn't work for the ones that really struggle with this. So the way to unhook the effect that your past has on you is to lean into it. So don't try to avoid it, value it. Now, how do we do this? We first stop trying to deny that it happened. Now, one of the reasons I think that we try to deny that our painful past happened is because we think that if something bad happened to us, then we are a victim, or we are broken, or we are damaged goods, or we are unlovable, or we are attached to the things that happened to us. The things that happened to us in our past are elements of the story. They're not the whole story. Those things happened to us, but they don't define us. That's the difference. And that's one of the reasons why we don't want to go back and say, you know, that thing that was really painful, it actually happened, because we think that means we're less than. That means that we're dumb. That means that we're not smart. We're weak. We're unlovable. We'll always have this future doomed to repeat that past because we're attached to what happened to us. And so a lot of times we say, those things, it's just our story. What if we can tell our story but not be our story? And all of that is intellectually true as well, but it still doesn't work for everybody if all you do is just understand these affirmations about the way it should be, right? We should be able to tell our story without getting lost inside of our story. So how do we actually detach from the story? We don't. We don't want to detach from the story. We want to detach the control that the story has on us. But the way to do that is actually attach to the story, but attach to it from a different perspective. Don't attach to it from a victim perspective. Don't attach to it from a negative perspective, taking on the identity of being damaged goods or of being inadequate because this thing happened in your past for whatever reason. Attach to the lessons from it. That's the key. Attach to the lessons from it. So in other words, what did you learn because of that thing? What muscles do you have that you probably wouldn't have had unless that, and I'm going to use the word trauma because I think we've all experienced trauma. We've all experienced something that we're holding on to as negative. It could be a low level of trauma or a high level of trauma, but we've all experienced trauma. And I think we need to stop being afraid of the word trauma. And we also need to stop defining trauma as only the most egregiously painful things that we can think about in humanity. When you're in third grade and your parents move and you have to make new friends, that's a trauma. Trauma is not reserved for just abuse. The way I understand it and the way I use it, that is a trauma. Trauma is just a spectrum. So we have low-level traumas and we have high-level traumas, but we all have traumas. So the real question is, how do we deal with trauma, regardless of what intensity level it is? How do we deal with trauma? And what I've learned is, almost without fail, it doesn't matter where it shows up on the spectrum of intensity. The way we deal with trauma is actually the same. And this is it. What did we learn from it? Now, if we're dealing with some high-level trauma, it might not be a quick fix. It might not be a quick shift and a realization that's immediately going to unhook you. Although I've seen that happen incredibly fast. But the process of unhooking the influence that something has on us is actually to attach to the lessons of it. Don't pretend something didn't happen when we don't have the ability to erase our past. I mean, how many of us are figuratively trying to take a big old eraser and looking into our past and saying, I wish that didn't happen. I wish that didn't happen. I wish I had a better mom. I wish I had a better dad. I wish I had a better brother or sister. I wish I had a better upbringing. I wish I didn't get bullied. I wish I had this and I wish I had that. And I don't mean to invalidate the desires that we wished we had a better childhood, but it's impossible. We can't actually change our childhood. So if we're trying to change the unchangeable, then we're always going to stay stuck because we're telling ourselves, I can't get over this thing until that thing didn't happen. And with as much, grace and love and advocacy I have in my body, that's just an impossible task. Now, some people try to do that by trying to disremember the past. We try to numb ourselves out from it. We try to forget about it. We try to numb our experience of it, but that actually doesn't change the existence of it. The way to change the hold that it has on us is not to try to erase it, but actually try to embrace it. And that's possible. So how are we better because of it? What did we learn because of it? What lessons are we now walking around because of that? How are we different and better equipped in the different roles that we have, the different roles that we play because of that. If you're a coach or want to be a coach, will you be able to coach people? Will you be able to heal other people because of the very things that you wished didn't happen to you? One of my favorite examples of this, and this is one of the earliest times when I understood the power of this. I did a speech probably 10 years ago at a conference, and my speech was about how we can change the way that we're holding on to the past. And after the talk, people were gathered around. There's probably 6, 7, 8 people gathered around. They were asking me questions. They were saying, oh, it's amazing. And I love how you shared this. And everybody was, relatively excited. And then a woman entered the circle, and she was pissed. And she was fuming at me, right? And she basically said something like, oh, so what, you're just going to tell me that I'm just going to pretend that stuff didn't happen to me? Which was actually the exact opposite of what I had said, but she was plugged into the way that she heard it. She was plugged into the way she received it, and she took it as though I was invalidating her. She took it as some kind of a threat. And so she was essentially just yelling at me like, you're just going to tell me that I'm just going to pretend that I wasn't put up for adoption with all my other brothers and sisters and just pretend that everybody else didn't get adopted while I stayed back and got abused in my home. Finally, when I was taken in by my uncle, that he didn't abuse me again. You're just going to pretend? You're just telling me that I should just pretend that none of this stuff happened to me? And she was just getting more and more agitated and irritated. And what I did is, and I don't know where this came to me, but just kind of a download or intuitive thing. I actually leaned into her and I asked if she was a mom, and she said yes. And she was like super mad, right? And I go, yeah, but are you a good mom? And I said it just like that. And if any of you are moms, or you've been around moms, or you could just tell what her reaction probably was to that, pretty much everybody else in the circle was like, whew, like, you're on your own, dude. But for whatever reason, I just felt like that was like I had to engage her and I had to challenge her a little bit. So I said, yeah, but are you a good mom? And she leaned in and she said, you bet you're, and she had some pretty choice words for me. And she said, and I think I said, why? And she said, because I give my kids everything that I didn't have. Every time before they leave the house, I give them a hug and I let them know that I love them. And I give them everything that I wish my parents would have given to me or my foster parents would have given to me. That's why I'm a good mom. And I said, let me ask you a question. Do you think that the things that you went through are part of the reason that you're a good mom? And she said some version of F yes, right? And I said, let me ask a question. If you had a choice between you going through all the things you went through in your past or your children going through them, which would you choose? And before I even finished the question, she said, I would go through it all day long. I would go through everything in slow motion over and over and over again. I would walk across shards of broken glass for those kids. I would take everything on so they don't have to touch any of the pain that I experienced. And she was just like super pissed, right? And then I said, and every time I tell this story, I feel like I need to tell a disclaimer. I swear this is what happened. I said, so what's the problem? And she said, nothing. And just turned around and walked away, like stormed off. And I looked around the other people that were there and I was like, did you guys see that? I wasn't the only one that just saw that, right? Did you see that? And in that moment, what I learned and what she learned is that if she could choose one or the other as a mom, would she choose that she went through it or her kids go through it? If she goes through it, is she in a better position to make sure her kids don't go through it? Whatever the it is, in this case, feeling like they're not loved. And in that moment, like just literally within a few minutes of this interaction, most of it angry, in a moment she recognized, I wouldn't change it because I'm a better mom because of it. And what a lot of us are trying to do is hold on to the lessons that we've learned, but we're wishing the class wasn't necessary. We're wishing what we had to go through didn't happen, but we want to keep the lessons that we had to go through it to get. I was all up in this shit spiral a few years ago. And I was just going in on myself and getting frustrated at this other person. And I was blaming this person and, you know, how dare they do this to me and blah, blah, blah. And I was just in all this stuff. And then I had another just like epiphany, right? And it was like this voice just showed up and kind of gave me a version of the story I just told you. Of like, just pick this or that. And this voice said, well, first of all, I was contemplating what I've learned. Because I was actually talking to somebody, now that I'm thinking about it, I was talking to somebody and I'm glad I learned this and I'm glad I learned that and I'm never going to fall for this again. I'm never going to do that again. And the next relationships are going to have this and blah, blah, blah. And it was all around business and all around, you know, messaging and all the things that I learned. I was so angry at this one particular person. And then I recognized all these things that I learned. And then I think I actually said this. I said, I can't be grateful for the lessons and hateful for the teacher. And it was like everything in my body just released. Everything that I was holding on to toward that person just released. Because in that moment, I embraced the lessons that this person taught me. And what I've since learned is that our most painful lessons usually come through. No, let me say it a different way. Not painful. Our most powerful lessons usually come through our most painful experiences. So we look back and we wish the pain didn't happen, but we want to keep the power. We want to keep the wisdom. But wisdom, this kind of wisdom only comes from adversity. So if we were to go back and erase the adversity, then we would also erase the wisdom. But if we want to keep the wisdom, then we have to keep the adversity. And if we want to embrace the wisdom, if we want to embrace the outcome of the painful adversity, then we can, just as kind of a flow through process, also embrace the painful lesson, the painful adversity, the experience. So when I had this thought, I can't be grateful for the lessons, but hateful toward the teacher, my feelings toward this person, my negative feelings just evaporated. And I realized in that moment, this person is one of my sacred teachers. Now, we tend to wish that our sacred teachers were just the ones that show up and teach us their life lessons, but that's not usually how it happens in life. Our sacred teachers quite often are the ones that deliver their wisdom through pain, through adversity, through trauma, through the things that we wish didn't happen. Now, please don't take any of this to be dismissive. I'm not trying to just tell you any version of just get over it, you know, just walk it off. Actually, not at all. What I've learned to be true is that if we lean into the sacredness of our pain, that's the way that we can start to change the grip that it has on us. And we can start to embrace the lessons that it has for us. And that doesn't mean that what anybody did is okay. This is not, we're not pardoning everybody in the past that's done vicious things at all. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people have problems with forgiving is because to a lot of us intellectually, forgiving means it's okay what you did and it's okay what happened. We can simultaneously believe that it's not okay what they did, but I'm okay with the lessons that it taught me. In my experience in this work, that right there is the shift. And when we embrace the lessons from the adversity as a byproduct, we unhook. As a byproduct, we unhook from the negative control that something has over us without pretending that it didn't happen. We unhook by embracing that it did happen, embracing that there's nothing we can do to change the existence of it, not be okay with it happening, not forgive and forget the person that did this, especially if it's some kind of trauma in your past, not any of those things, and say, I'm a better mom because of it. I'm a wiser coach because of it. I'm a better adult. I'm a better leader because of it. Because that thing happened to me, I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen to a bunch of other people. If there's any form of embracing of the lessons, then as a byproduct, we energetically unhook. Now, again, this might not be just a quick switch. So please don't place that expectation on yourself. But there's sacredness in our pain. There's sacredness in the humanity of what we've learned from the painful experiences that most of us wished we actually didn't have. And that would be amazing if the wisdom was just given to us without the experiences, but that's just not the way it happens. Even if somebody did give us wisdom without an embodied experience of the adversity, we wouldn't truly understand the wisdom. So this is, in my experience, how we change the effect that our painful past has on us. It's not that we change anything about it. We can't void it, but we value it by recognizing what we've learned or what we've become or how we've evolved because of the very thing that we wished wouldn't have happened. And when we can get to the place where we can tell our story, but we tell the story as the elements of the lessons that we learned. This thing happened to me so that I could learn this. This thing happened to me, and because of that, I now do this. That's how the story loses its grip over us to where it controls us. And we can tell the story and we can control it rather than it controlling us. So I hope this lands for you all. If this is resonating for any of you in any way, then I hope it provides some level of hope or some level of peace or something. And if any of you have something that you would like more support on, I mean, we are a coaching company. We offer free coaching consultations. You can go to our website, coachseansmith.com/book my call and schedule a one-on-one consultation, and we'll support you through this or anything that you might be dealing with. And we're not going to do this stuff on our own. I mean, if we could, we would. To this day, I don't know how to self-coach because we just can't see outside of our perspective. We can't see from our blind spots, right? And so it's not weakness to need help. It's wisdom to seek help. Like, most of us don't believe what's possible. And that saddens me. Most of us don't believe the level of joy we seek is possible. Most of us don't believe the healing that we need is possible. Most of us don't believe the success that we dream about is possible, that the love that we've always wanted is possible. Most of us don't believe it anymore. Once upon a time we did, and that saddens me even further, that something happened to take our hope away. something happened to take our belief away. And we've convinced ourselves that it's not worth it because we don't think it's actually possible. But if I could take you for a moment and just tap you into the life that you want to experience, especially a life that you might not think is possible, if I could take you and tap you into that and then bring you back here, you would run. You would do anything you possibly could do that you need to do to run right through any wall that's in front of you because you would actually feel what's possible. And it saddens me that a lot of humans have been taught that what they want to experience and how they want to walk around this planet and what they want to feel in relationships or in a career or in our bodies, we've been taught that it's not possible. And I've just learned that's not true. Everyone can heal. Most people will choose not to. Everyone, and I'm using everyone with just a slight asterisk, we can experience the life we want. Most of us will choose not to. We'll choose not to because we misunderstand that it's possible, or we misunderstand the process toward it, or we'll just experience broken expectations on the way to the point where we will get so frustrated at ourselves that we'll quit. And most people, when they quit, are painfully close to what they need to touch or to their breakthrough or to their realization. Most people are painfully close, but quit because of the self-induced misery. Now, if you like this video, check out that video where we talk about how to create a meaningful and marketable message for your coaching business. I've experienced this many, many times in my journey over the last 15 plus years in my business, but we see this all the time. And people buy marketing systems that don't have a message.